Anna stopped living in the past and chose to create her future. Trapped in memories, how Anna's past defined every part of her present. Anna used to wake up every morning with a weight in her chest, not from anything happening in the present, but from the echoes of a past she couldn't seem to escape. Her world was quiet, almost frozen, as if time had decided to stop somewhere between what was and what could never be again. The photos on her wall, the songs she replayed endlessly, even the clothes she wore, everything was a relic of a time when things felt safe, whole and known. She didn't speak much about what happened. Most people in her life thought she had moved on, that enough time had passed. But inside, she was stuck in a loop. Her identity was entangled in memories of who she used to be, the people who once loved her, and the life that had crumbled slowly, quietly, without her permission. At work, Anna was present, but not really. She would smile politely, complete tasks, and respond when necessary. But her mind constantly drifted. She replayed conversations from years ago, asking herself what she could have done differently. Regret was her shadow. It followed her everywhere, in her relationships, in her career, in the way she viewed her own worth. To Anna, the past wasn't just a place she visited, it was a place she lived. Every decision in the present was filtered through the pain, fear, or disappointment she had once felt. She turned down new friendships because they reminded her of ones that had ended. She refused new opportunities because failure once crushed her. She even avoided happiness because it felt like a betrayal of the sadness she had grown comfortable with. The most heartbreaking part, Anna didn't even realize how much of her life was shaped by what was behind her. She believed she was protecting herself, guarding her heart from more pain. But in reality, she was limiting every possibility for growth, joy, and peace. She had become a prisoner in a mental museum of moments, playing the role of curator, never realizing she had the key to leave. And like many people stuck in the past, Anna wasn't lazy or weak. She was simply afraid that letting go meant forgetting. That moving forward meant disrespecting the pain she once survived. What she hadn't learned yet was that honoring the past doesn't require living inside of it. The breaking point, when Anna realized she couldn't keep living this way. There's a moment, silent, but piercing, that divides life into a clear before and after. For Anna, that moment came on a quiet Thursday evening, the kind of night that should have felt like any other. She had just come home from work, dropped her bag by the door, and sat on the edge of her bed, staring blankly at the floor. The house was still. Too still. Her phone buzzed with messages from friends she hadn't replied to in days, and unopened emails piled up like reminders of everything she was avoiding. She had lived like this for years, numb, distant, surviving on autopilot. But that night, something cracked. It wasn't a dramatic event, no screaming, no tears. Just a deep, hollow ache that rose from her chest like a quiet scream. She looked around her apartment, the half-decorated walls, the untouched books, the plans she never followed through on. And then she looked in the mirror. The woman looking back at her didn't look broken, she looked empty. And that scared Anna more than any breakdown ever could. That night, she didn't cry. She didn't shout. But for the first time, she admitted to herself, I can't keep doing this. The pain of staying the same had finally become greater than the fear of change. She realized that she had been waiting for someone or something to rescue her, for time to fix her, for a sign, for closure that would never come. But nothing outside of her was going to save her from a life that felt half-lived. This quiet but honest moment of recognition was the beginning of something new. It wasn't a solution. It wasn't clarity. But it was a decision to stop coasting, to stop hiding behind the past, a decision to ask for the first time, what if life could be different? It was a whisper of hope in a sea of numbness. And sometimes, that's all you need. A life on pause, the quiet cost of not moving forward. For years, Anna wasn't moving backward, but she wasn't moving forward either. Her life felt like a paused film, the image frozen, the silence unbearable, the tension stretching invisibly across every minute of her day. She woke up each morning not because she wanted to, but because she had to. She got dressed, went to work, smiled at people, did what was expected. On the surface, she looked fine. But internally, she was somewhere else, somewhere stuck between memory and fear. It's strange how standing still can be just as exhausting as running. The weight of the past pressed on her shoulders, not through dramatic breakdowns, but through small moments, forgetting to respond to messages, skipping meals, missing deadlines, saying no to invitations because she just didn't have the energy to pretend. She wasn't falling apart. She was fading. She didn't allow herself to dream. Why would she? Dreaming meant opening the door to disappointment again. It meant investing in a future she didn't believe she deserved. So instead, she stayed in the safety of maintenance mode, keeping things barely functioning but never fully alive. The truth is, she had learned to survive heartbreak by numbing herself. But in doing so, she had numbed everything else too: joy, curiosity, excitement, connection. The cost of that emotional paralysis wasn't just lost opportunities or missed chances. It was deeper than that. It was the loss of self, the quiet erosion of identity. Over time, Anna forgot what she loved, what made her laugh, what lit her up. She began to feel like a background character in her own story, just passing time, watching other people live while she stood on the sidelines. And perhaps the cruelest part of being stuck is that no one sees it. Because stuck doesn't always look like crisis. Sometimes it looks like competence, like politeness, like "I'm just tired." But underneath it, Anna was slowly becoming a stranger to herself. Until one day she realized time wasn't going to wait. The longer she paused, the harder it would be to press play again. And if she didn't take the risk to step forward, she'd end up spending her whole life in the waiting room of her own potential. The wake-up call, the moment Anna realized she was stuck. Sometimes, transformation doesn't begin with a loud crisis. It begins with a quiet moment of clarity. For Anna, that moment came on a rainy Sunday morning. She was sitting at the kitchen table, stirring a cup of coffee she wasn't really drinking. The apartment was silent except for the soft ticking of the clock on the wall. The rain tapped gently on the windows, and the gray light gave everything a dull, muted tone. Her phone was face down beside her. Unanswered texts from friends, unopened job alerts, calendar reminders long ignored. But Anna wasn't looking at any of it. She was staring at a single sticky note on the fridge. It was something she had written almost 2 years ago, during a burst of optimism. It said in her own handwriting, "Start over. You can." She had meant it when she wrote it. It was supposed to be her reminder to rebuild, to move forward. But now, after all this time, it was just a faded note, curling at the edges, ignored like all the promises she had made to herself. Anna sat there for a long time, eyes fixed on those words, and suddenly, without drama, without panic, it hit her. She was stuck. Not just behind on projects or slow to answer calls. She was emotionally frozen, spiritually stalled. Her dreams had turned into memories. Her passions had become nostalgia. And her plans for the future? Just ideas that gathered dust in the corners of her mind. And yet, time was still passing. People around her were growing, failing, loving, losing, rebuilding. And Anna, she was waiting. But for what? For certainty? For motivation? For someone to give her permission to live again? That realization hurt more than any heartbreak ever had. Because it meant acknowledging that she had been the one holding herself back. That she had allowed the past to make her small, to shrink her voice, to silence her hope. Not intentionally, not out of laziness or weakness, but out of fear. Fear of failing again, of getting hurt, of not being enough. But that sticky note, it was still there. And maybe, if she had once believed in those words, she could believe in them again. Start over. You can. That wasn't just a note on the fridge anymore. It was a challenge. A whisper from a version of herself that hadn't given up. And for the first time in a long time, Anna felt something stir. Not joy, not courage, not yet, but awareness. And that was enough to begin. Letting go of the past, the emotional process of releasing old narratives. Letting go is one of the most misunderstood parts of healing. People often speak of it as if it's a switch you flip, like one morning you simply decide to move on, and suddenly the weight disappears. But for Anna, letting go wasn't a single moment. It was a slow unraveling, a painful peeling away of the stories she had told herself for years, stories that had quietly shaped her identity even when they were full of pain. She had always believed that her worth was tied to how others saw her. That if someone left, it was because she wasn't enough. That if she failed, It was proof she should have never tried. These beliefs didn't just hurt, they had become her inner voice. Quiet, constant, cruel. Letting go meant challenging that voice. It started one night, while Anna was going through a box of old journals. Pages filled with heartache, with dreams abandoned, with letters never sent. As she read, she didn't cry. She didn't rage. She simply listened, not to the words, but to the patterns. She began to see how often she had written the same lines over and over again. Maybe I deserved it. I should have been stronger. I'm tired of hoping. And then it hit her. These weren't reflections of truth. They were scripts, ones she had memorized so well that she stopped questioning them. That night, she did something different. She didn't tear the pages. She didn't burn the journals in some cinematic gesture. Instead, she closed the box, took a deep breath, and whispered out loud, "These stories are no longer mine." It was simple, quiet, but it was the beginning. From then on, Anna began the practice of reframing. Every time the voice in her head told her she was unworthy, she paused and asked, "Says who?" When she caught herself thinking she'd never change, she'd say, "That's an old story. I'm writing a new one." Letting go wasn't about forgetting. It was about choosing what she carried forward. And piece by piece, memory by memory, Anna stopped dragging the past behind her like a heavy suitcase. She started walking lighter, standing taller, speaking kinder to herself. The past didn't vanish, but it no longer defined her. Tiny wins, how small habits helped Anna regain her sense of control. After years of chaos, emotional, mental, and relational, Anna's life felt like a room that had been ransacked. Pieces of who she once was lay scattered in corners, and she didn't even know where to begin cleaning up. She had read books and watched videos about transformation, but everything felt too big, too far away, too unrealistic. The idea of becoming a new person was overwhelming when she couldn't even get out of bed some mornings without spiraling into old thoughts. So, she stopped aiming for massive change. She made her bed. That was it. No journaling. No meditating. No meal prepping. Just make the bed. It seemed ridiculous at first, almost too small to matter. But that simple act created a crack in the wall of helplessness she had been living behind. Making her bed wasn't about neat sheets. It was a symbol, a declaration. I still have a say in how my day begins. From there, she chose one more habit. Drink a glass of water before coffee. Again, simple, but powerful. With each tiny win, Anna's confidence grew, not because her life was suddenly perfect, but because she was keeping small promises to herself. And that mattered. After years of trusting everyone else but herself, she was finally rebuilding integrity from the inside out. She started walking around the block. Just 10 minutes a day. She set timers to stand and stretch every hour. She kept her phone out of her bedroom at night. None of these habits were glamorous. They weren't Instagrammable. But they worked. Not because they changed the world, but because they slowly began changing Anna's relationship with herself. Each small action whispered to her nervous system, "You are not stuck. You are not powerless. You are learning how to live again." And over time, these small rituals created structure, rhythm, safety. In a life that once felt like a storm, Anna was learning how to anchor herself, not with grand gestures, but with the quiet consistency of showing up again and again. Tiny wins, massive healing. Facing the mirror, Anna's breakthrough in self-acceptance. There was a moment, quiet, almost forgettable, when Anna stood in front of the mirror after taking a shower. No music playing, no phone in her hand, no filter or distraction. Just her, a towel, foggy glass, and a silence that demanded honesty. For years, she had avoided this. Mirrors had become battlegrounds, places where she'd inventory her perceived flaws, the curve of her hips, the tired look in her eyes, the weight of old decisions. She didn't just see a body, she saw every regret she hadn't forgiven. But this time was different. She didn't turn away. She didn't flinch. She breathed. And then something unexpected happened. She looked, really looked, and whispered, "I'm still here." That phrase echoed in the steam like a prayer. It wasn't said with confidence. It wasn't triumphant. It was soft, broken, and human. But it was real. That was the breakthrough. For the first time, Anna wasn't trying to escape who she had been. She wasn't trying to edit herself into someone else's idea of beauty or worth. She was facing the version of her that had survived. The one who had cried on the bathroom floor. The one who had kept showing up to life even when she wanted to disappear. The one who had chosen to stay. In that moment, self-acceptance wasn't about loving everything. It wasn't some fairy tale transformation. It was about surrendering the war she had waged against herself for so long. She stopped needing to be perfect. She stopped chasing an ideal that wasn't hers. She simply allowed herself to be flawed, healing, and in progress. And that changed everything. From then on, Anna approached herself with more grace. When she made mistakes, she didn't spiral, she reflected. When old thoughts whispered, "You're not enough," she responded, "That used to be true. It's not anymore." Self-acceptance wasn't a destination. It was a practice, a daily decision to meet herself where she was and to stay. No running, no fixing, just choosing, over and over again, to come home to herself. And in doing so, Anna finally found the stability that no external circumstance had ever been able to give her. Reclaiming her story, how Anna stopped letting the past define her. There was a time when Anna's identity was completely entangled with her past. Every conversation, every choice, every quiet thought filtered through the lens of what had already happened to her. She wasn't Anna, the woman becoming something new. She was Anna, the girl who was left behind. Anna, the one who got it wrong. Anna, the one who used to be so full of potential before it all fell apart. But a quiet truth began to rise in her. What happened to me is not the same as who I am. It started small. She stopped beginning stories with apologies. She stopped introducing herself as the version of her that had failed. She realized that every time she repeated those old scripts, "I'm a mess. I always ruin things. I don't trust people anymore," she was reinforcing a character that no longer fit her. Anna wasn't trying to erase the past. She was finally reframing it. Instead of saying, "That relationship broke me," she said, "That relationship taught me what I will no longer accept." Instead of, "I wasted so many years," she whispered, "Those years showed me how deeply I need to live differently." This wasn't toxic positivity. This was authorship. Anna realized she had been living in a book someone else had started writing for her, a story of shame, heartbreak, disappointment. But now, the pen was in her hand, and she no longer wanted to highlight only the pain. She wanted to emphasize the recovery, the resilience, the moment she got back up, the chapters where she chose herself again and again. She began journaling, not to relive her past, but to rewrite how she interpreted it. She created a morning ritual, 1 page of truth, 1 page of vision. She unfollowed people who only reminded her of who she used to be and surrounded herself, online and off, with people who mirrored back her growth. With each word, each choice, Anna reclaimed her story. And in doing so, she discovered a truth many never do. You don't get to rewrite the past, but you do get to decide the meaning it holds. That was her liberation. Building a vision, creating a future that's bigger than her pain. For most of her life, Anna had been reacting. Reacting to the wounds, the memories, the silence of being ignored, the sting of being misunderstood. Her actions were based on survival, not creation. She wasn't building a future, she was simply trying to escape her past. But something shifted when she realized, you can't outrun pain, but you can outgrow it. That shift began with a single question. What would my life look like if it were designed by my hope, not my fear? For the first time, Anna allowed herself to imagine without limits. Not from a place of denial, but from a place of healing. What if she opened that bakery she always dreamed of? What if she lived by the sea, wrote poetry, and spent mornings in stillness? What if she fell in love, not just with someone else, but with her own process? She stopped setting goals based on fixing herself. She started setting intentions that expanded her. And she realized this truth. A compelling future dissolves the grip of an oppressive past. So she created a vision board, not just with pictures of success or wealth, but images that reflected how she wanted to feel. Peaceful, seen, worthy, free. She hung it above her desk. It became a daily reminder that her pain was not the peak of her story. It was the foundation. She began to schedule time each week just to think about her future, to imagine it with details, to picture her strength 5 years from now, to visualize the smile she'd wear when she realized she made it through. The vision gave her something that trauma never could: direction. And direction created momentum. Anna was no longer running from anything. She was moving toward something. Her vision didn't erase the pain, but it gave it context. It gave it meaning. Pain, after all, was the soil. But now she was the gardener. And her future, a forest waiting to grow. Living forward, Anna's daily practices for staying grounded in the present. The hardest part of healing wasn't surviving the pain. It was learning how to live without constantly anticipating it. Anna had spent so many years waiting for the next emotional storm, that learning how to exist in moments of peace felt unfamiliar, almost uncomfortable. Because for someone who lived in the past for so long, the present felt like foreign territory. But Anna knew that if she wanted to keep moving forward, she had to stay where her feet were. She had to stop time traveling with her thoughts and start building a home in the now. So she created rituals, small, steady anchors that grounded her to the present. They weren't complex. They were human, real. She started her mornings with silence. No phone, no rush, just a window, a breath, and a mug of tea. She'd ask herself, what matters today? Not in 5 years. Not yesterday. Just today. She kept a journal by her bed, not to vent the past, but to notice the present. She'd write 3 sentences each night. One thing she learned. One moment she was proud of. One emotion she allowed herself to feel without judgment. This simple habit created a sacred space between what had happened and what could be. Movement also became a meditation. Not just gym workouts, but long walks without purpose, letting her body process what words never could. Some days she cried, some days she laughed, but every day she moved, and in doing so she healed. Anna also practiced the discipline of digital boundaries. No scrolling when she felt lonely, no comparing her life to filtered versions of others. Instead, she'd send voice notes to friends, or play her favorite childhood songs that reminded her she was once joyful and could be again. These daily choices didn't erase her past, but they reoriented her relationship with time. Anna was no longer living from her history. She was living into her future, one grounded moment at a time. Because presence, for her, wasn't just mindfulness. It was self-respect. It was a promise to herself. I will no longer abandon my life by living in yesterday. And with each passing day, Anna's present became the very life she once thought she'd never have.